The Galactic Concord had kept peace for 11,000 years. 12 ancient races ruled the galaxy together. They had signed treaties. They had built trade routes. They had created rules that everyone followed. War was not just rare. It was impossible. Every ship was counted. Every weapon was tracked. Every species knew exactly how strong every other species was. The balance was perfect. Nothing could break it. Then the sensors at gate detected something strange. A single ship came out of empty space. It was 3 kilometers long. It had no identification codes. It matched nothing in the databases. The Concord had records of 40 million species, and this ship belonged to none of them. The automated systems tried to scan the vessel. The readings came back wrong, not blocked, just wrong. The machines could not understand what they were seeing. It was like the ship existed in a way that the sensors were not built to measure. High Arbiter received the report in her chambers on Nexus Prime. She was the leader of the Concord, a being with 4 hearts and skin like polished stone. She read the report once. She read it again. Her hearts began to beat in a pattern that her species associated with disaster. The ship was sending a message. It repeated the same words over and over in perfect High Concord. This was the language of the elder races. No species outside the 12 had ever spoken it. No species outside the 12 had ever heard it. The message said, "This is the UNSS Persistent Question. We are here to talk." Stood very still for a long moment. Then she gave an order. The 7th Fleet would mobilize immediately. She did not plan to attack. She needed to be seen doing something. The other elder races would expect action. Within 1 hour, every elder race had done the same thing. They all sent their fleets toward the system. By the end of the day, 17,000 warships were moving through space. They came from every corner of the galaxy. They came with weapons that could crack planets and burn stars. And the human ship simply waited. It did not move. It did not power up weapons. It did not try to run. It just floated there in the darkness, sending its message again and again. Admiral of the Krill hegemony was the first to arrive with his fleet. The Krill were beings of pure thought, their bodies made of geometric shapes that shifted and changed. Had commanded fleets for 3,000 years. He had never seen anything like this. He ordered his ships to form a blockade around the human vessel. 500 warships made a sphere of metal and fire. Their weapons were aimed and ready. One word from and the strange ship would become dust. But did not give that word. He studied the vessel through his sensors. It was ugly by Krill standards. The design was rough and practical. There was nothing elegant about it, but there was something else, something he could not name. The ship felt solid in a way that went beyond its metal hull. It felt like it belonged there, like it had always been there. More fleets arrived. They came with their living ships, vessels grown from organic matter that pulsed like giant hearts. The silicates came with their crystal dreadnoughts, ships that sang with energy. They came with their war cruisers, bristling with weapons and painted with the symbols of 1,000 victories. 17,000 ships surrounded one vessel. It was the largest gathering of military force in 4,000 years, and still no one fired. High Arbiter arrived on the command station Infinite Calculus. This was a massive structure built for war councils. It hung in space like a metal moon, and inside the leaders of the 12 races gathered. "What do we know?" asked. Admiral answered, "The vessel appears to be from a species called humans. They are young. They have only been in space for 300 years. They live near the edge of the galaxy in a small cluster of systems. Our records say they are unremarkable, carbon-based life, short lives, primitive technology." "Then how did they build this ship?" asked Ambassador X of the. She was a tall being with too many eyes and a voice that touched minds directly. "How did they learn our language?" No one had an answer. Pulled up the Concord's files on humanity. There were not many. The humans had been observed from a distance a few times. Scout ships had passed through their space and made notes. The notes said the humans were not a threat. They were building colonies on nearby worlds. They were developing faster-than-light travel. They were doing all the things that young species did. But there were also annotations. Small warnings added by observers who had looked a little closer. Notes about strange readings. Questions about why human technology seemed to advance so quickly. And there was one encrypted file. It was 4,000 years old. Most officials had never been allowed to read it, had read it once long ago. It contained only one line: "Do not make contact, do not explain why, archive and forget." The author's name had been erased from every record. Looked at the image of the human ship on her screen. 3 kilometers of metal and mystery, surrounded by 17,000 weapons, and it just waited. It did not seem afraid. It did not seem aggressive. It seemed patient. "They learned High Concord," she said quietly. "Our sacred language, the tongue that requires understanding of 11-dimensional mathematics to speak correctly. They learned it without ever hearing it spoken." The council was silent. "They have been watching us," X said. Her mental voice trembled slightly. "For how long, how much do they know?" The human ship continued its broadcast. The same words over and over. "This is the UNSS persistent question. We are here to talk." "Made a decision. We will send someone to speak with them. We will learn what they want." "And if they want war?" Admiral asked. Looked at the 17,000 ships on her display. The greatest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. Enough firepower to destroy 100 worlds. "Then we will give them war," she said. But deep in her 4 hearts, she felt something she had not felt in centuries. She felt afraid, not of the human weapons, not of their strange ship. She was afraid of what they might know. She was afraid of what they might say. She was afraid that this single vessel might change everything. The galaxy held its breath and waited. The council met for 6 days. They argued and debated and studied every piece of information they had about humanity. They ran simulations. They analyzed the ship from every angle. They tried to understand how a young species with primitive technology could build something that their sensors could not properly read. Admiral presented his analysis on the 3rd day. His geometric body shifted into shapes that represented careful thought. "The vessel could hold perhaps 4,000 crew members," he said. "Its size suggests this number. We cannot see any weapons on the outside. It has made no aggressive moves. By all normal measurements, it is not a threat." "Then why are we so afraid?" asked Ambassador X. The question hung in the air. No one wanted to answer it. The Concord had spent 11,000 years building the most complete database in the galaxy. They had records of every spacefaring species ever discovered. They knew who was strong and who was weak. They knew who could be trusted and who could not. This knowledge was their greatest weapon. It allowed them to predict everything. But the humans had done something impossible. They had hidden. For 300 years, they had pretended to be a small, unimportant species with basic technology, and all that time they had been watching, learning, building. The Conquered could not predict beings who had fooled them for so long. Ordered the old records to be examined again. Every scout report, every observation, every note made about human space in the last 4,000 years. Her researchers worked without sleep, searching for clues. They found very little. The humans had been careful. Their public activities looked exactly like what a young species would do. They built colonies. They traded with nearby systems. They had small wars and made peace. Everything normal, everything expected. But there were small things that did not fit. One scout had noticed that human ships were faster than they should be. Another had reported strange energy readings from a human station. A third had observed humans speaking to each other in a language that made no sense, full of mathematical concepts that should have been beyond them. Each observation seemed minor on its own. Together, they painted a different picture. They have been learning from us, realized. Every time we observed them, they were also observing us. Every scan we made, they recorded. They have been studying the Conquered for centuries. This explained the High Conquered language. They had intercepted transmissions. They had analyzed the mathematical patterns. They had taught themselves to speak the tongue of gods. But it raised another question. Why now? Why reveal themselves after so long? On the 5th day, something new happened. The human ship sent a different message. "We understand that you are afraid," the message said. "We are not here to threaten you. We have information that the Conquered needs. Information about dangers that you have not seen. Please send someone to speak with us. We will answer your questions." The council exploded into argument. Some said it was a trap. Others said they should destroy the ship immediately. A few suggested that they should listen. Studied the words carefully. The humans knew the Conquered was afraid. They had said so directly. This was either very clever or very honest, perhaps both. She called for silence and made an announcement. "We will send an ambassador, one person alone to speak with them directly. If it is a trap, we lose one life. If it is honest, we gain knowledge." The choice of ambassador was difficult. It needed to be someone skilled in negotiation, someone who could think quickly, someone whose loss would not cripple the conquered. Ambassador volunteered. Was a silicate, a being made of living crystal. He had served the conquered for 400 years. He had negotiated the Treaty of Frozen Stars, which ended a war that had killed billions. He was old and wise and not afraid of death. "I will go," he said. "I have lived long enough. If the humans wish to kill me, I accept this. If they wish to talk, I will listen." Agreed, would enter the human ship alone. He would carry no weapons. He would have no way to call for help. If he did not return within 20 hours, the conquered would assume the worst. Shuttle left the infinite calculus and crossed the empty space between the fleets and the human vessel. 17,000 warships watched him go. Their weapons were ready. Their crews were tense. The shuttle reached the human ship and was pulled inside by some invisible force. The docking bay doors closed behind it. And then there was silence. For 3 hours, no one heard anything. The council waited, the fleets waited, the galaxy waited. Then's voice came through the communication system. He sounded strange, not afraid, not angry, something else, something like wonder. "They are not what we expected," he said. "I am safe. The humans wish to speak. They have things to show us. I recommend that the High Arbiter come here personally." The council erupted again, raised a hand for silence. "What have you learned?" she asked. "They know things," said. "Things about us, things about the conquered, things about the future. They say the galaxy is in danger. They say we cannot see it because we are too close. They say they can help." "Help with what?" There was a pause. When spoke again, his crystalline voice was very quiet. "They say the conquered is dying. They say we have perhaps 300 years before everything collapses. They have proof. They have solutions. They want to share them." Felt her 4 hearts stop for just a moment. "That is impossible," she said. "The conquered is stable. We have maintained peace for 11,000 years." "I have seen their data," replied. "I believe them." The council sat in stunned silence. The greatest civilization in the galaxy, the oldest alliance in history, the perfect system that had kept peace for longer than most species existed, and these humans claimed it was dying. Looked at the image of the human ship on her screen. 3 kilometers of answers, surrounded by 17,000 questions. "I will come," she said. "Prepare for my arrival." She stood and walked toward the door. The other council members called out questions, objections, warnings. She ignored them all. If the humans were lying, she would know soon enough. If they were telling the truth, she needed to hear it for herself. The galaxy would never be the same. Entered the human ship alone. She had commanded fleets and ruled councils, but walking through that docking bay was the bravest thing she had ever done. The doors closed behind her, and she was cut off from everything she knew. She expected strangeness. She expected alien designs that would hurt her eyes and technology that would confuse her mind. Instead, she found hallways that felt almost welcoming. The lights were warm. The walls curved gently. The air smelled clean and fresh. Somewhere in the ship, machines hummed softly like a heart beating. A human woman waited for her at the end of the corridor. The woman was small, stood twice her height. The human had brown eyes and gray hair and lines on her face that showed her age. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations. She smiled when she saw, and the smile was warm. "High Arbiter," the woman said. "Thank you for coming. I am Captain. You know who I am. We have watched your career for 60 years. You are a good leader, fair and wise. That is why we sent our message now. We hoped you would listen." Did not know what to say. This small creature had been watching her for 6 decades. The thought was unsettling. Led her through the ship. They passed crew members who nodded politely but did not stop their work. Saw humans of different colors and sizes, all moving with purpose. They did not seem afraid of her. They did not seem impressed by her. They treated her like a guest. They reached a large room filled with screens and displays. Ambassador was there, his crystal body glowing softly. He looked different than before. Calmer, more certain. "Please sit," said. "We have much to discuss." Sat, the chair was sized for her body. The humans had prepared for her visit. "Your ambassador told you that the conquered is dying," began. "I know this is hard to believe. Your civilization has lasted 11,000 years. It seems eternal, but nothing is eternal, High Arbiter. Everything changes or it ends." "Show me your proof." nodded and activated the displays. Information filled the room, charts and graphs and data streams that stretched back centuries. The Krill hegemony said, "Your strongest military ally, their reproductive cycle is failing. They have hidden this for 600 years. At current rates, their population will fall below sustainable levels within 4 generations. They will be extinct within 8. Stared at the data. It was detailed and precise and horrible. The Krill were one of the founding races of the conquered. They could not simply disappear. "How do you know this?" she asked. "We have watched, we have listened, we have learned." The display changed. New data appeared. The continued. Their collective consciousness is fracturing. Different factions are forming, each with different goals. Within 3 generations, they will go to war with themselves. The conflict will spread. Other species will be drawn in. The damage will be catastrophic. More data, more proof, more disasters waiting to happen. The silicates are running out of the rare minerals they need to reproduce. They have built their entire culture on conquest, but there is nothing left to conquer. The economic systems that bind your races together are showing stress fractures. Trade is slowing. Resources are becoming scarce. Old grudges are being remembered. Felt sick, each piece of information was like a blow to her stomach. She wanted to deny it, but the data was too clear, too complete. "You see the conquered as a finished building," said. "Strong and permanent, but it is more like a machine with worn parts. It still runs, but the pieces are breaking. Soon something will fail, then something else, then everything." "Why tell us this?" asked. Her voice was quiet. "If we are doomed, why reveal yourselves now?" Smiled again. It was a sad smile, but also a hopeful one. "Because you are not doomed. The problems can be fixed. The machine can be repaired. But not by you, not alone. You are too close to the system. You cannot see it clearly. You need help from outside." "From you." "From us." Stood and walked to the displays. She studied the data on the krill reproductive failure. The numbers were clear. The trend was obvious. How had the conquered missed this for 600 years? "You have solutions," she said. It was not a question. "We have ideas, approaches, starting points. Our geneticists have studied the krill problem. We believe we can stabilize their cycle. It will not cure them, but it will give them time. Centuries, perhaps, enough time to find a real solution." "And the economic collapse, all of it." "All of it we have spent 300 years preparing. We watched and we learned and we developed answers. Not perfect answers, but better than nothing." Turned to face the human captain. This small woman with her gray hair and warm eyes was offering to save the galaxy. It seemed absurd. It seemed impossible. It seemed like the only hope they had. "What do you want in return?" asked. "Territory, resources, power." Shook her head. "Nothing, we want nothing." "That is not possible. Everyone wants something." "We want neighbors," said simply. "We want a galaxy that works. We want other species to talk to and learn from and grow with. We cannot have that if the conquered collapses, so we offer help, that is all." Did not understand. In 11,000 years of galactic politics, she had never met anyone who wanted nothing. There was always a price, always a hidden motive. But looking at this human woman, she saw only sincerity, only hope, only a genuine desire to help. "Your people are strange," said. Laughed. It was a warm sound, full of life. "We know," she said. "We have always been strange. It is perhaps our greatest strength." Made her decision. "Show me everything," she said. "Show me all your data, all your solutions, all your plans. I will take them to the council. I will make them listen." Nodded and reached out her hand. It was a human gesture of agreement. Did not know the custom, but she understood the meaning. She reached out her own hand, 4 times larger than the humans, and they touched. "Welcome to the future, High Arbiter," said. "It is going to be different than the past." For the first time in 6 days, felt something other than fear. She felt hope. The data spread through the conquered like fire through dry grass, shared everything the humans had given her. She held nothing back. Within 1 week, every leader of every elder race had seen the truth about their civilization. At first, there was anger. The krill were furious that their secret had been exposed. They had hidden their reproductive failure for 600 years. They had worked so hard to pretend everything was normal. Now everyone knew they were dying. So that their collective was fracturing. They insisted that their unity was perfect, but even as they argued, different factions within their species contradicted each other. The cracks were visible now. The silicates confirmed that their mineral supplies were running low. They admitted that their warrior culture was struggling to find purpose. The economic experts looked at the trade data and saw the patterns they had missed for centuries. Panic began to spread. For the first time in 11,000 years, the conquered faced the possibility of ending. The ancient alliance, the great peace, the perfect system, it was all breaking apart. Old enemies remembered old hatreds. Old friends began to distrust each other. Fleets that had stood together started positioning against each other. It seemed like the end was coming early. The humans had warned of collapse in 300 years, but fear was accelerating everything. Then the Krill made a decision that changed everything. Admiral contacted the human ship directly. He did not ask permission from the council. He did not consult with the other elder races. He simply reached out to Captain and asked for help. "My people are dying," he said. His geometric body was dim and still. "We have no hope. You say you have ideas. We will listen." Invited him aboard the persistent question. Came alone, just as Ant had done. He spent 3 days with the human scientists. They showed him their research on krill biology. They explained their theories about the reproductive failure. They offered a treatment that might help. It was not a cure. The humans were very clear about this. It was a stabilization. It would slow the decline. It would give the krill time to find a real solution. Took the treatment back to his people. The krill scientists studied it carefully. They tested it. They improved it. Within 1 month, the first treatments were administered to krill who had given up hope of ever having children. It worked. Not perfectly, not completely, but it worked. Krill children were born who should never have existed. The death sentence was lifted. The krill would survive. News of this spread through the galaxy. The humans had helped the krill. They had asked for nothing in return. They had simply offered knowledge and walked away. They noticed their collective was fracturing just as the humans had said. Different factions were growing more separate each day. Communication between groups was becoming difficult. Violence seemed inevitable. A delegation contacted the persistent question. They asked if the humans had ideas for their problem too. Met with them, she explained that the humans could not fix the collective. That was not their place, but they could offer a framework, a new way of thinking about mental connection that allowed for difference, a structure where separate minds could remain linked without being forced to agree. They took this framework and studied it. They adapted it to their own needs. They created new protocols for communication between factions. The fracture did not heal, but it stopped growing. Different groups learned to disagree without destroying each other. Word spread again. The humans had helped the two. One by one, the elder races came to the persistent question. The silicates asked for help finding new mineral sources. The humans shared mapping data that led to deposits no one had discovered before. They asked how they could find purpose without conquest. The humans suggested joining the effort to help other species, becoming protectors instead of conquerors. Each time the humans asked for nothing, they gave freely. They shared knowledge without conditions. They offered solutions without demands. The panic faded. The fleets stopped positioning against each other. The old grudges were put aside, at least temporarily. A new feeling spread through the conquered. It was small at first, but it grew. Hope watched all of this from Nexus Prime. She received reports every day about another species helped, another problem addressed, another crisis avoided. The humans were changing everything, and they were doing it by giving things away. She did not understand them. In all her years of politics and power, she had never seen anyone act this way. There was always a price. There was always a hidden agenda, but the humans seemed to have none. She contacted directly. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you help us? Why do you ask for nothing?" Smiled through the communication screen. She was in her ready room on the persistent question. Behind her, crew members worked at their stations. "Do you have children, High Arbiter?" asked. "I have 17 descendants." "Do you ask them to pay you for raising them? Do you demand something in return for teaching them and protecting them?" Was confused. "Of course not, they are family." "That is how we see the galaxy," said. "You are all family, we are all connected. When one species suffers, all species suffer. When one species thrives, all species benefit. We help because helping is right, because a healthy galaxy is better for everyone, including us." "But you could ask for so much. We would give you power, we would give you territory, we would make you rulers of the conquered." Laughed softly. And then what? Then we would have to maintain that power, we would have to defend that territory, we would have to manage and control and dominate. That is exhausting, that is wasteful, that is the old way of thinking. She leaned forward and her eyes were serious. We do not want to rule the galaxy, High Arbiter. We want to be part of a galaxy that works. We want neighbors who are healthy and stable and happy. We want a future where everyone grows together. That is worth more than any throne. Sat silently for a long moment. She had lived for 800 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched species destroy themselves over scraps of power. And here were the humans offering a different path. A path of cooperation, a path of shared growth, a path of family. You are very strange, she said finally. Smiled, we know, we consider it a compliment. Felt something shift inside her. Something old and tired gave way to something new. Tell me how I can help, she said. I want to learn your way. The smile on his face grew warmer. That, she said, is the best thing anyone has said to us since we arrived. The galaxy was changing. The collapse that everyone had feared was becoming something else, something better. And it was only the beginning. 50 years passed. The galaxy was not the same place it had been when the persistent question first arrived at the gate. Everything had changed, slowly but completely, like a river carving a new path through stone. The Galactic Conquered still existed, but it worked differently now. The old system of power balances and careful treaties had evolved into something new. Species that had never spoken to each other were now partners. Problems that had seemed impossible were being solved. The rigid hierarchy of the elder races had softened into a network of cooperation. And at the center of it all, never leading but always present, were the humans. They had spread throughout the galaxy, but not as conquerors. Human ships traveled from system to system, carrying scientists and teachers and doctors. They set up research stations where different species worked together. They built schools where young beings learned about cultures beyond their own. They created trade networks that benefited everyone who participated. Whenever there was a conflict, humans would offer to mediate. Whenever there was a crisis, humans would offer to help. They never demanded. They never forced. They simply offered, and more often than not, their offers were accepted. Captain had become famous. She was old now, over 100 years by human counting. Her hair was white and her face was lined with age. But her eyes were still warm and her mind was still sharp. She still commanded the persistent question, though the ship had grown and changed over the decades. The galaxy called her many things: the bridge builder, the peaceful one, the mother of stars. She rejected all titles and asked simply to be called captain. But not everyone was happy with the new galaxy. The had changed along with everyone else, but a small faction refused to accept the new way. They called themselves the true warriors. They believed that strength meant domination. They believed that the old ways of conquest and glory were being forgotten. They believed that the humans were weakening the galaxy. For years, they gathered in secret. They built ships in hidden shipyards. They recruited soldiers who longed for the old days of battle. They planned their attack carefully. When they were ready, they moved. A fleet of 3,000 warships emerged from hiding and set course for Earth, the human. The true warriors believed that destroying humanity would restore the galaxy to its proper order. Without the humans to spread their ideas of cooperation, the old ways would return. Their Grand Admiral was unnamed. He was old and a veteran of wars that had ended before the humans revealed themselves. He stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched Earth grow larger on his screens. Today we restore honor, he announced to his fleet. Today we remind the galaxy that strength is the only truth. The fleet entered the human solar system. They expected defenses. They expected fleets and orbital weapons and all the terrible machines of war that they had prepared to face. They found nothing. Earth hung in space, blue and green and beautiful. A few civilian ships moved between the planet and its moon. A small station orbited nearby. There were no weapons, no warships, no defenses at all. The station sent a message. It was calm and simple. Welcome to Earth. Would you like to talk? Laughed, this was too easy. The humans had grown soft. They had forgotten how to fight. They would die without even trying to resist. All ships, he ordered, open fire. 3,000 warships aimed their weapons at the defenseless planet. Energy beams and missiles and bombs of every kind were ready to launch. Raised his hand to give the final command. The first volley fired, and nothing happened. The weapons left the ships, but they did not reach the planet. They simply stopped, frozen in space, their energy fatting, their explosives dying. Thousands of warheads hung motionless in the darkness like dead stars. Stared in disbelief. Fire again. They fired again. The same thing happened. Every weapon stopped before it could reach Earth. The planet sat untouched, peaceful, as if the greatest military assault in a century was nothing more than a gentle breeze. Then a ship appeared. It was 3 kilometers long, exactly like the persistent question. It materialized besides flagship without any warning. One moment empty space, the next moment a human vessel. A communication came through. The voice was old but strong. Captain. Grand Admiral, I am sorry it has come to this. What have you done? Demanded. What technology is this? Something we developed a long time ago. Something we hoped we would never need to use. Your weapons cannot harm us. They never could. Felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. Then why did you never conquer us? He asked. If you have such power, why did you not take the galaxy for yourselves? There was a pause before answered. Because that is not who we are. We do not believe in domination. We do not believe in conquest. We believe in growth and cooperation and building things together. We could have taken the galaxy by force, but what would we have then? A galaxy of slaves and enemies. That is not what we want. Then what do you want? We want neighbors. We want friends. We want a future where everyone has a chance to be happy. That includes you, Grand Admiral. That includes the true warriors. Did not understand. His entire life had been built on the idea that strength meant victory and victory meant power. The humans had more strength than anyone, but they refused to use it for power. You came here to destroy us, continued. You came here to kill billions of innocent people because you fear change. But I do not hate you for this. I understand. Change is frightening. Losing your purpose is painful. You were raised to be a conqueror, and now there is nothing left to conquer. The old captain's voice softened. But there is another path. You could be a protector instead of a destroyer. You could use your strength to help those who cannot help themselves. You could find honor in service instead of conquest. The choice is yours. Stood on his bridge, surrounded by his crew, facing a power he could not defeat. Everything he believed was being challenged. Everything he was had been proven pointless. He could continue the attack. He could die fighting against an enemy that could not be harmed. That was the way, the true warrior way. Or he could listen. The silence stretched for a long moment. If I choose your path, said slowly, what happens next? Then we talk, we find a way forward together, we build something new. Looked at Earth through his, beautiful and blue and completely undefended because the humans did not need defenses. They had something stronger, something he was only beginning to understand. Stand down, he ordered his fleet. Power down weapons, we will talk. The true warriors hesitated, some protested, but was still their Grand Admiral and his word was law. The weapons powered down, the fleet went quiet. On the persistent question, Captain smiled. Another crisis avoided. Another enemy transformed. Another step toward the future she had always believed in. Welcome to the family, Grand Admiral, she said. It is going to be different than what you expected. She looked out at the stars. So many worlds, so many species, so many possibilities. The humans had entered the galaxy to help, and they had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. Not through conquest, not through domination. Through patience and kindness and an unshakable belief that cooperation was better than conflict. The galaxy was not perfect, it would never be perfect, but it was growing, it was healing, it was becoming something new. And the humans, strange and small and stubborn, would be there to help every step of the way. The persistent question had been answered. Not are we alone, but what do we do now that we know we are not? The answer was simple. We build together.